I want to thank you again for joining the SCV Chamber's Insurance Update webinar presented by LBW Insurance. For those who don't recognize my voice, my name is Peter Warder with the Chamber, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to make a quick announcement. In partnership with the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation, we're pleased to announce our new webinar series titled Scaling Up Back to Business. The series will begin next week, and we're scheduled for Wednesday, May 6th at 10 a.m. and Friday, May 8th at 10 a.m. The webinar series will continue thereafter twice a week and consist of business-to-business panels and business-to-consumer panels discussing a post-COVID-19 business world. You can find all the information and register for the event on our website, scvchamber.com, under the Events tab. As we begin our program, I'd like to first thank our presenters, Mitzi Like and Howard Miller from LBW Insurance, for helping put together today's important webinar. You'll be hearing on how the insurance industry is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as a briefing on cyber risk. Topics today will include refunds mandated by the Department of Insurance order, business interruption claims for lost revenue, impacts on workers' compensation premiums and claims, and strategies to reduce cyber risk created by your remote workforce. Once again, as the LBW team is presenting, if any questions come up, please send them over using your questions panel, and we'll get them queued up for the Q&A session. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mitzi. Mitzi, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. I wanted to welcome everybody to our webinar here. Thank you very much for taking your time to join us. I want to personally thank the clients that are on the line. Thank you very much for your business. I know that we probably should say that more often, but now is a good time to really thank you very much for the business. In addition, I want to thank the Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation for being not only friends, but being good organizations in our town. And I want to personally thank them for having us aboard. And I love to say it, I'm going to say it, we love our awesome town, and please stay well. So let me begin. Want to first talk about the big picture. There's no two situations, meaning no two organizations that are identical. So we have non-essential organizations and essential organizations, meaning your businesses. And we've had to talk with our clients and customize for them each individual client's solution to the pandemic. I think the takeaway here is to call LBW if you're our clients, and if you're not our clients, call us anyway. But the big thing is to go over it with your agent, your insurance program. I want to start with a couple of easy ones, just to tap on them. The first screen here you'll see is hired and non-owned autos. What is that? Hired autos are rented vehicles. Non-owned autos are employees' vehicles. So what's happened now, the insurance companies have become very flexible when it comes to this particular coverage. Up until now, there's limitations and restrictions. What's going on now, though, is they're saying, hey, we understand what's going on. We get it. So restaurants, goods, and other type of service activities are being delivered, and employees' vehicles are being allowed to do so. The next one, and a lot of people don't think about it, but us being in insurance, we do, is the 60-day vacancy clause endorsements. They're in the property policies. The property policies are within business packages, for those of you tuning in on that. And normally we only pay attention to it if things are really vacant. So what is vacant? According to Department of Insurance, they're not viewing the fact that you locked your door and everybody left and it's vacant. You have contents there. You have tenant improvements, inventory, goods, furniture, fixtures. There's a lease in place. That's key too, between the landlord and the tenants. And so therefore, it's not really necessarily vacant anyway. That's what the Department of Insurance type version is commenting on this. But temporarily, if you're going to be closed, and those are for the non-essential businesses, that what these vacancy clauses are doing now is they're being waived for the moment. They're being temporarily put aside. The insurance companies, again, are being flexible. And now I'm going to talk about business interruption, civil authority, and virus exclusion. So LBW's position and has been very simple. If you're damaged, your business is damaged, you put in a claim. That's our message, and that's been our message from the get-go on this whole pandemic timeline. Many of you might have seen my comments in the article I did for San Fernando Valley Business Journal a couple of weeks ago, and I made some comments regarding business interruption coverage and how clients and everybody were dealing with it. So let's just talk about what LBW is doing. We've communicated to our clients, by and large, with using their own insurance policy. So when a client is questioning their coverage, and we've had many calls, maybe 200 of them, we've given the client their own individual policy with the policy form business interruption in it. You don't necessarily have to read the screen. I'm just giving you a quick flash of what we're sending the clients. So they're getting a copy of the business interruption section, along with the civil authority paragraph, and along with the virus exclusion paragraph. In addition to that, we are making a statement regarding workers' compensation injuries, and we're making a statement regarding general liability injuries. And so that's been what we've been doing. Let me just back up here a minute. What I wanted to go over, and because I know that there's been a lot of extra questions regarding business interruption, and it seems to be the topic of the day. In fact, I just picked up our insurance journal this morning, and it's still a topic of the day. Most insurance companies have ISO forms. ISO is Insurance Service Office. That's what that means. So by and large, a lot of the insurance policies that you have, and we insure, there's like 100 insurance companies, but a lot of the insurance companies subscribe to insurance office forms, and they all read pretty much alike when it comes to business interruption, civil authority, and virus exclusion. So, and there needs to be direct physical damage for the covered cause of loss. That's what these forms say. That's what's going on and what we're telling our clients. At the end of the day, again, we're still telling clients, you got damages, put it in. Let me give you a quick example of what would be covered. And I think we even have a couple of clients on the line that this would apply to. And the reason why I want to give an example of what would be covered, because I don't want you to think that the insurance policy is just there and they never pay anything. But a good current example is the fires we had. So we had Westlake, Malibu, Calabasas, they all had fires in those areas. The fire department, that's the civil authority or governmental authority, came to businesses where the fire was headed to and said, please shut your business down, evacuate your people for safety, and let us come in and fight the fire. Now, they didn't burn down yet the actual building or premises that they were in. What they were told is a civil authority, that's the fire department, came and told them to evacuate because the fire was coming close and they needed to fight the fire on their behalf. Well, what was covered is certain policies have a certain amount of hours or deductible, but then once that was solidified, those clients, there was expenses and claims paid under business interruption with the civil authority paragraph. So I just wanted to point out that that was a real life, happened very currently, business interruption with civil authority, again, direct physical damage on a covered cause of loss. With all this said, there is speculation, and there's a lot going on, a lot of noise, I'll say, that Congress, the judicial system, legislation, whatever, everybody's kind of jumping on the bandwagon, a lot of trade groups, and they're trying to get the insurance companies to overturn the coverages and overturn the policies and pay out on business interruption. So number one, if that did happen, with the amount of insurance claims there would be and the amount of payout there would be, the insurance industry would be in a world of hurt. In fact, the hurt for the insurance company, if you wanted to compare it, would be well beyond what's being hurt in the travel industry, specifically the airlines. They're in a world of hurt. There's only a certain amount of reserves that are set up on claims, and a lot of the claims that have been paid are hurricanes, fires, things of that kind of catastrophe. They get paid under these business interruptions and civil authority. I can tell you, as of this morning, the insurance trade group, meaning the Agents and Brokers Association, is lobbying, and this is a very strong lobbying group, for a fund to be set up by the federal government, kind of like the terrorism in 9/11, kind of like what's happened with the SBA and the banks, and that they would settle the claims to a certain cap or whatever guideline and use the pocketbook of the federal government to get all these people paid, because they know how to settle claims, because they're the insurance carriers, they have a claims department, and the government would need to back it, and it would just be another form of backing. So I don't want you to take away from my presentation that this is being done. It's far from over. This whole area, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot going on. And I can tell you, as of this morning, I don't think that the Insurance Agents Brokers Association is getting a lot of attention in Congress. And so that's pretty much where we are on that topic. I can take questions at the end. Now, moving on, what's LBW doing with some of our insurance carriers, and how are we helping? So LBW, we have just under 40 team members. We are on Smythe, for those of you who have been to our office. Start with employee benefit area. The employee benefit department, our group benefit department, has 6 team members in it. They're all working very hard for our clients all day. They're on the phones with the carriers. Again, our insurance carriers in the benefit department are being fairly flexible. They're making deferrals, grace period. We have to get in touch with them. We've had clients get in touch with them and trying to make it work for each and every client. We've reacted very quickly with timely processing of terminations. You can imagine we have a slew of terminations, and therefore COBRA. We need to make sure COBRA goes out. In addition, we're working very closely with our clients on advising them on furloughs. The furloughs are tricky. Part of what's going on there is we're furloughing employees, they're paying the benefits, but the employers, our clients, are having to figure out how to collect the employee section, the employee piece, their little participation for those employees that are being furloughed. So it's a little tricky, and we're navigating that. Some employees, they have their dependents on, some employees, they have extra coverages. So we're taking a little while here to navigate and make sure things happen. Whoops. Want to talk about telemedicine and the 90-day prescriptions. So in the employee benefit department, they're making a lot of communications for the employers to send to employees. The first one is the telemedicine. As an example, if you're a Blue Shield client, Blue Shield has their Teledoc program. That's what I'm referring to. It's been in existence for several years now. You pay a smaller deductible online, and you can get a phone appointment with a doctor. You have to give up some medical information. We are noting that a lot of the carriers are even waiving the deductibles for the telemedicine calls, and it's become very important now. We've had it all along, but it's become important because nobody wants to go to the hospital or to an emergency or an urgent care because they don't want to get into the pandemic situation and get subject to. In addition to that, there's the 90-day prescriptions. Again, this is something the insurance carriers have had all along, but now it's become important. And there's certain rules and regs by each carrier, so we're getting those out to the employers. In fact, I think that everybody's already got all this. For our department, we did it right away. A lot of people feel more comfortable receiving 90 days prescriptions instead of having to go to the pharmacy every 30. So that's what we're doing in employee benefits. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on to our other departments. Again, the insurance companies are being very flexible. We have many team members in personal lines. They're handling home and auto. And we have a tremendous amount of team members. That's the bulk of our agency in the commercial lines department. And they're all helping clients. And the thing that we've got big notice on is that the insurance companies are being flexible across the board. So not just the employee benefits and not just personal and commercial insurance companies, they're being flexible. When we went to an insurance company to ask them a favor or ask something a month or two ago, we would get a no. If we called them this week, we're getting yeses. We're getting suggestions. So again, some flexibility. With that, a lot of late fees have been waived. We're seeing premium deferrals, and then for the non-essential businesses, we're seeing some accommodations that can be made, and we're again having to work with each and every non-essential employer and see what can be done for their particular business. Okay, so now the more important, probably most important part of my presentation is the California Department of Insurance came out on April 7th with an order, our good Commissioner Laura there, for private auto. So in other words, personal auto insurance carriers. So Mr. Auto Insurance Carriers, you guys have less exposure from your clients driving. They're not driving to work, or they're not driving that far, or they're not even driving at all. You need to refund some premiums for this reduced risk. So that's what happened. Now, good news, many of the major insurance carrier complied with these refunds. They did it, and they did it very fast because they felt that they needed to do so. Most of the refunds are for April and May, those 2 months. And you can go on our website, www.lbwinsurance.com, and many of you know that website. We've been compiling each insurance company's information on what they're doing. So as an example, I know like Safeco and Mercury, they're giving a 15% premium return for the month of April and May for their auto insurance premium. And what the good thing about this is it's all done automatically. We're being told by all the carriers in this area, it's being done automatically. So while we're still getting a lot of calls here at LBW, you can rest assured that each insurance company is complying with the Department of Insurance. That's the big deal there. So now, fast forward, April 13th, the 2020-3 bulletin is modified. And so basically now Commissioner Lara said, okay, all you insurance companies in the state of California that sell commercial lines, we need you to look at all your policyholders' policies, and we need you to see that if there's risk reduction or things aren't happening right now during this pandemic timeline, that you refund premiums. So the order, in the order, it's 120 days that the insurance carriers have to comply with the order. Now, in insurance, commercial lines is way more complex than the personal lines policy. So everybody's kind of like a little different. So a lot of the carriers haven't quite all responded yet. We do have a few that did. And again, you can go to the LBW website, where as we get something in from the insurance carriers, we are loading it to our LBW blog within our website, and you can take a look and see what your particular insurance carrier has. There are about 100 carriers that could be writing the insurance commercial lines area. So again, you can go to the website, you can see what you can call us. Definitely of our clients, we've gone over things. The areas that Commissioner Lara has been told to look at is commercial auto policies, commercial multi-peril, which is your business packages, your commercial business packages. Some of you have what they call BOPs, business owners packages, all means the same thing. Workers' compensation, medical malpractice, and any other line of business that might have a reduced risk, so that you can see what kind of premium you can give back to the policyholders. So that's evolving as we speak. It's a hot topic. Now, with all that said, what the Department of Insurance is doing, switching the screen here to commercial insurance adjustment. What's that? Well, what LBW is doing, we're working with our essential and our non-essential to carve, customize, and adjust insurance policies to reduce premiums. And everybody's different. It depends on business. Each type of business has different tweaking. We make suggestions on those. We have a lot of niches that LBW specializes in. So in those niches, we've all gotten together and discussed, okay, what can we do? And it's different for every niche. And like I said, I don't want to sound like it's fancy and customized, but we've got clients where we may lower coverages, move things around, and do without some things, and all kinds of little adjustments. So it also becomes important what the revenue changes are for general liability, as an example, or what the payroll changes are for workers' comp, as an example. Those are all pertinent in trying to adjust people and trying to, well, not just people, but in just the insurance programs for each and every policy holder that we have. And a presentation would not be complete if we didn't talk about employment practice liability insurance. This I've been asked to talk the most. I've been asked to include this topic in almost everything I speak about, and that's been that way now for a year or two, maybe even 3. Employment practice liability defined is wrongful termination, discrimination, and we'll talk about that in a second, sexual harassment, which we've seen all in the news played out, and wage and hour, and wrongful termination. So I think I covered them all. Wrongful termination, discrimination, sexual harassment, and wage and hour. Those are employment practice liability segments of insurance on policies. Many of our clients have these policies in place, and why? Because this is the #1 claim problem that we have in the state of California. I don't want to get on my soapbox and go over the tort system in California. For those of you that are on the call, some of you know what I mean when I say that it's the #1 area. Each week we get a claim from one of our commercial business clients. That's how bad it is. And some of the claims are not even, they're not even correct. I mean, they're not even valid. Some of them are fraud, in fact, but we get them. So a couple things, discrimination claims are starting to pick up a tad with the fact that if somebody's warning somebody about virus, or somebody said that they thought they had virus and then somebody else thought they were discriminated. So there's a lot that he said, she said. And so we foresee that there may be an uptick in this discrimination area. The other thing that's happening, the other task that we're going through is all the clients that are reducing their head counts. In employment practice liability, reducing your head count is not going to reduce your premium. In fact, the employment practice liability area as a whole has taken massive increases. And we can thank our state of California judicial system, part of my soapbox, but we're taking massive increases already. So for those who have claims, they're going to definitely see an increase. For those that didn't have claims, they're going to still see an increase. We're just not getting away from this. Adjusting the head count, let's go back to that. If you adjust the head count, the premium actually could go up. We're being asked now to fill out supplements on what we're doing to adjust the head count, how we're handling letting people go, and whatever furlough or whatever documentation to give to the insurance carriers. Because if you're reducing your head count, the insurance carriers don't see it as less exposure. The insurance carriers see it as more exposure. Why? Because if you're letting people go, or you're furloughing people, or you're changing their work load, procedures, hours, or anything that you're changing, that creates an exposure that could be covered under this employment practice liability policy. So what is LBW doing? Some of the things that we're doing is we are talking to businesses about lowering the coverage limits. We're getting options. Do you want to take a lower coverage? Here's what the premium savings will be. Do you want to take a higher retention? That's kind of like a deductible. Let's see what that looks like. And then we let our client choose. A very volatile area, something to be reckoned with. I hope the tort system changes. I don't know what to tell you. And now we're moving to workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is important now because there's been a few changes. So for openers, anybody that is getting the coronavirus during work hours, during the course of their job, we're turning in those claims. And with the Bureau is the Workers' Compensation Inspection Rating Bureau. That is the guru, that's the god that governs workers' compensation insurance for all of the state of California. They're coming out and they're suggesting, and it'll be in a hearing in May, that's next month, a couple of things. Number one, they want to make sure that if employees have contracted the virus while in the course of the business, that those are getting covered. Secondly, they're making sure that the possibility of this possibility that if you have an experience modification, which is your history, they're not including pandemic claims in the calculation. Well, that's big for our larger clients that have experience modifications, because they have their very own modification that could be plus or minus 100%. And this really could be a big help in the future, especially if some people think or know that they have a pandemic claim, it's not going to affect their history. The other thing they're doing is we have clients that are paying employees, but they're not really working. They're just paying the employees. Why? Because they want to maintain the employees. They want to maintain their talent. They don't want them to leave. So, but they're not really working. So so the Bureau is saying, hey, we want to see if we can exclude that payroll from the reporting, so you don't have to report for workers' compensation premium. Then at the last thing that I think is a highlight is the Bureau is looking at temporarily allocating employees to the 8810 clerical code. As an example, if you have a salesman, which is the 8742 code, it's a higher rate just about for everybody. And now your sales guy is sitting, or gal, sorry about that, is sitting at home. They're collecting their pay, and they're talking with their clients, but they're not going out to see them. They can be their payroll can be put in a clerical code, which is a much lower code in terms of premium. So that would save the employers money. Let me back up 1 minute and just give workers' compensation. I want to make sure everybody understands that workers' compensation pays for medical bills. It pays for indemnity, which is the disability that the employee may have. It also has a death benefit. So many people forget about the death benefit, but with coronavirus, I thought I would mention it. And then there's a rehabilitation supplement in there. But that is workers' comp in a nutshell. Now, we need to stay tuned. Hopefully all these things will come true. In talking with many of the workers' compensation insurance carriers, we have about 40 of them, they are all saying that they're probably going to get these guidelines approved, and that they would be following them. And so they're kind of all on board with what's going to happen with the workers' compensation situation in regards to reporting payrolls and premium. So now that we're talking about employees, I wanted to now hand off my presentation to Howard Miller. Howard Miller is the VP of technology at LBW. He's done a lot of delivery of speech and talk in our tech secure division. And I think that there's a big cyber risk, and I wanted to make sure that Howard addressed it on behalf of everybody on the call. So Howard, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Mitzi. My presentation, just briefly, I really want to talk about how the situation is changing, understanding cybersecurity and the impact, and some key points to consider in this new environment. When you look at the situation from a risk perspective, it's really not about eliminating risk or minimizing. What you need to have as a new mental model is optimizing risk. And so you have to balance your drive for sales and revenue with an understanding that risk can destroy that, and you need to find an optimal balance there. And that's really what's going on right now, and how companies are adapting and surviving in this new environment. And the core of what is taking place for companies that are succeeding is happening through digital communication, connectivity, IT, and information security. Here's a slide from Cloudflare, and what's going on here is that the internet traffic has shifted from the big metro areas to the suburbs, right? Everyone went home, and now we're operating with a remote workforce. And I like this is, giving the rise due to social distancing. We're seeking out new ways to connect. I like this little graphic here about house party going up. Obviously, Facebook, YouTube, Netflix going up exponentially in use. And we're suddenly becoming more reliant on the services that allow us to work and learn from home. And these services are just skyrocketing because that's how we're getting business done. So in order to transact business and maintain our operations, we really need to consider how we're dealing with digital connectivity. And part of that has to do with how we're looking at security. Now, one thing that hasn't changed in this environment is information security management. And this is a great way to look at it. It's pretty simple. It's called the CIA triad. But what you're looking at is that if you cannot maintain availability, your information's not available, you can't connect, obviously you're going to get shut down. If you can't maintain the integrity of that information, it gets corrupted, destroyed, or you can't trust that the person communicating with you is who they say they are, then again, this structure starts to fall apart. And then lastly, confidentiality. And this is really important in this environment. We're all connecting digitally. But once you lose confidentiality, it's really hard to operate. So if we look at a few of these things and some key points, availability. And when you lose availability, you have an operational shutdown. And what we're looking at here is from a digital perspective. So you want to consider, how much money is it going to cost me if I'm down for an hour, a day, a week? What is the damage to my reputation? Now, an operational shutdown can happen due to a virus infecting your system, ransomware. It could be a denial of service attack where your website gets flooded with traffic, and this can be performed by a 12-year-old with certain tools that are freely available, shutting down your website, making it unavailable to authorized users. Or it could be an administrative error, a human error. And this type of business interruption is actually covered under a cyber insurance policy. But here, we're not looking at the physical damage portion. We're looking at a digital disruption. Now, this is a slide that I did at a presentation recently, and this was right before the pandemic hit, and ransomware was going up. So the average payment for ransomware is showing here at $84,000. And in this environment, I don't know if businesses really need that kind of bill. And the other thing is that if your operation gets shut down, you get locked up. Ransomware is essentially malicious code that locks up your files and your systems. And then in exchange, you pay a criminal a ransom, and they may or may not unlock your files and system. So taking that chance for the kind of money that is being requested in this environment is not something you want to deal with. So when it comes to ransomware, what I really like as a source of information that I recommend is the FBI. They're on the front lines. They're apprehending these criminals and going after them and taking them down. So when the FBI gives you recommendations, they're very targeted and concise, and it's good to listen to that. So one thing is that you need to be careful about what you download and click on. It's just that simple. And if you are using a virtual private network, VPNing into remotely into a system, and you have remote users, if their home systems are infected and the criminal is inside their system, now they have just allowed them into your VPN. So keep that in mind, and you want to keep operating systems, software, applications up to date. And you want to use antivirus or anti-malware solutions that automatically run and update. Criminals in this environment are looking to attack home users, and they're looking for vulnerabilities in existing software. Could be Adobe, a number of different programs that are just old versions and are not kept up to date that have vulnerabilities that could be exploited. You want to back up your data regularly, and you want to double check those backups, make sure that they're secured. And they need to be segregated so that if you do get malware, it doesn't go into the cloud and destroy your backup, and then you try to load your backup, and then that's been corrupted. So that just adds insult to injury. So you want to work with a security professional, an IT professional, so that you know those backups are read-only, or they cannot be corrupted or destroyed when you need to rely on them. And finally, having a continuity plan. This whole situation happened almost overnight. And the funny thing about it is once you're dealing with a crisis, the time to prepare is over. You no longer have any time to prepare. So we're all scrambling to get new IT resources. IT is being overwhelmed with calls. And so if you can learn from this and review your business continuity plans for your organization, you're going to be that much more prepared for a situation where you have a crisis. The other thing is that I strongly recommend cyber insurance. Why? Not just because of the financial backstop, but the cyber insurance policy can really jumpstart your incident response plan, because it's going to give you the legal advice. There's going to be a coach that you can call 24 hours a day. They can analyze your computer systems. They can send out notification if you're required by law to do that to affected individuals. And that's all part of the plan that you may need to deal with in responding to a cyber attack or some type of confidentiality breach. So talking about confidentiality, here's another report by the FBI about teleconferencing and online classrooms being hijacked. When I go over these examples, you may not be a school. I want you to think about the broader picture of a breach of confidential or protected information. That could be between you and your bank, you and your attorney, your CPA, any other type of trusted advisor. So here you've got March 2020, Massachusetts-based high school reports a teacher was conducting an online class. An unidentified individual dialed into the classroom, yelling profanity, shouting out the teacher's home address in the middle of instruction. So you can see the damage to reputation, the disruption when you can't maintain confidentiality. Here's another school that was disrupted by an unidentified individual who was visible on video camera displaying swastika tattoos, okay? So here are some steps that you want to consider, especially if you're using things like Zoom. You want to make sure that you use a password or a waiting room feature to control the admittance of guests. Don't share the link publicly. Don't just spread it out there on social media. Send it directly to the people that you're going to be conferencing with. And manage the screen sharing options to a host-only situation. And ensure that you're using updated versions of these meeting applications. So in January 2020, Zoom updated their software with a security update. You want to make sure you take advantage of that, or make sure that you're using service providers that take security seriously, and always, update so those vulnerabilities are not exploited. And here's a really important area that, as this situation evolves, we need to look at our own policies and procedures. So you want to have a telework policy with your remote workforce that addresses physical and information security. And we're in this situation right now where you just can't walk down the hall and talk to the controller or the CFO and say, hey, I just got this email. It looks kind of weird requesting this wire transfer. So you need to have those protocols, those policies and procedures in place. And one of the challenges that we're experiencing right now is it's not just having that digital connectivity, but it's maintaining your corporate culture in this environment, and that's going to take increased communication. And you might want to think about, doing some happy hours. We're doing some stuff like that at LBW, and just really connecting more frequent and where you have more of an interchange. And in some ways, this is really helping to make connections within the company that weren't really happening before between higher executives, middle management, and other employees. And finally, integrity. So business email compromise, this is getting tricked by a cyber criminal to send money to a party that you thought you knew but turns out to be a criminal. So you're basically releasing funds. And the problem with the insurance industry is that people were turning in claims to their crime policies, and the insurance carrier would say, all right, well, how did the theft happen? And the company will say, well, it wasn't actually a theft. We kind of got tricked into giving the money to the cyber criminal. And the insurance carrier would say, oh, well, voluntarily giving money to a criminal is not a theft, and therefore you're not covered. So you want to look at your cyber policies, your crime policies, and you can talk to myself and LBW about this, and make sure that you're protected for online bank fraud, computer fraud, funds transfer fraud, and a lot of these social engineering issues. You are going to be bombarded by a lot of emails talking about important information. They could be pretending to be coming from your CEO or other trusted sources. And that is just going through the roof right now. And the criminal enterprises are capitalizing on this disruption to trick you into clicking on a link or downloading a file that in turn is going to inject malware and compromise your system. So only connect through the internet through a secure network. Don't just get on at Starbucks. Not really that people are doing that much lately, but you want to use a VPN to make sure the data is encrypted. Multi-factor authentication. Don't wait to set this up. If you have it in place, use it. If you don't, you want to set this up. It's an extra layer. It's something along with something you have. So your username and password, but if that gets compromised, the criminal may not have your phone. And having that second layer is a key defense recommended by a lot of security experts. The other thing is training your employees, right? Everyone's kind of on the front lines here in communicating digitally. If you have been training your employees, great. A lot of people are doing phishing exercise where you send out kind of something that looks legitimate and see who clicks on that or opens an attachment. If you had a 10% failure rate in the previous environment, expect that failure rate to be double or triple right now. That's what's going on within organizations. And so you really need to reinforce training, everyone, executives on down, to recognize, don't respond to requests for information. You get a call from IT. We understand there's been some disruption in the remote desktop protocol. We need to get your username and password to make sure you're set up properly. You need to know who to call. Call those numbers. Don't click on links. If you don't trust something, don't compromise your company. And finally, cyber insurance, to really, as I said, not only provide a financial backstop, but to provide incident response and resources. Cyber insurance has two pieces. One, before we even went into this at the beginning of January, we had the California Consumer Privacy Act, which is expanding the definition of personally identifiable information and putting in statutory damages for data breaches of $100 to $750 per record. And that's real money. So the plaintiff's bar is still continuing, and if you have to legally defend yourself, you need specialists. Cyber insurance can help you respond and provide you the legal defense and settlement resources you need. And then from a first party side, you're looking at, if something does happen, maybe they got in, but maybe they didn't access anything. Maybe they didn't take anything out. But how would you know? And you need to have a computer forensic specialist come in and examine so that you are able to either notify the affected individuals or have a defensible position that you may not have to notify those individuals required by law, which we have in all 50 states, as well as GDPR and new laws that are coming up in a variety of states, including California with the CCPA. So cyber insurance is really important in that respect, and it's kind of part of the solution along with what you're doing to control the exposure. So that concludes my little section on cyber. Here's our contact information to connect with us. I think Mitzi, we're ready to maybe take some questions if there are anything from the audience on this whole range of topics.
I'm here, Peter.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you again, Mitzi and Howard, for this. We are going to begin the question and answer portion. Again, if you do have a question, just go ahead and type it in to the questions box, and we'll do it we'll do our best to answer it. Howard and Mitzi, I'll go ahead and just kind of go through the questions, and then whoever feels most appropriate to answer, just feel free to jump in. For the first one that I've got for you, it's in regards to filing for unemployment insurance. One question that's asked is if you're receiving a pension. Is Social Security income considered a pension? And if so, would it be deducted from the unemployment insurance payment?
I can respond to that, but my response is probably whoever's asking the question is not going to be happy. We don't sell unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance is provided by the EDD. It's the state and Fed. And so Social Security questions are federal. So I think that you need to direct those questions regarding unemployment insurance, unfortunately, to the EDD or Social Security offices.
Okay, thanks for that. Next question I've got is, will there be a partial refund for malpractice insurance while not seeing any patients?
According to the order 2020-3, they actually specifically named medical malpractice as one of the policies that need to be looked at. So yeah, we do have several medical malpractice. We also have some dentists and some consultant type businesses in the medical field. And so we're going to be addressing that with the carriers. A lot of what we're doing is, this all just happened. This is like a week or so old. And a lot of the insurance carriers kind of haven't gotten their ducks in order yet. But that would be something that would be considered to answer the question. Yes.
Okay. This next one, I think it'll be geared towards Howard, but can you just explain what a VPN is?
A virtual private network is kind of an encrypted portal that allows you to access third-party cloud services and keeps the information from the source to the source encrypted. And encryption is basically putting a lock on information so it's scrambled. And the only way to unencrypt it, you need some type of key that could be biometric, it could be a password, it could be a file, things of that nature. And that's essentially what encryption is. And so encryption, if you look at the California law, that if you have a data breach that involves over 500 records that are unencrypted, you need to notify the state attorney general's office. And the key word there is unencrypted. So by using a VPN, by encrypting your hard drive on laptops and desktops, encrypting files, you're putting yourself in a more defensible position, whereby if you went to Starbucks and connected with a Wi-Fi, you may not know what you're connecting to, and then all the information that's flowing through that could be visible to a third party, where they might be seeing confidential emails and other information. So working with IT and security, they can help you set those up. We have trusted advisors that we work with, that we recommend to clients. And then also, if you have a cyber insurance policy, LBW is helping our clients with some of the resources that the insurance carriers are offering to help companies get more secure and to review what they have in place and maybe implement some of these things. So those are a couple other resources that can help in understanding your security and implementing the VPN.
Howard, I'm going to go ahead and move these two questions up only because they are related to this topic. So just as a follow-up with that is, how would an employee know if they're covered by a VPN while working from home? And I guess sort of in your opinion, is a VPN that is included with Norton 360, for example, adequate?
Yeah, well, usually it's going to be a third-party service that is going to create that encrypted connection. I would caution people on selecting those services. There have already been claims where one of the VPN providers was compromised, and so the people that were using that VPN, their information was actually not secure. And so you want to work with a security professional or IT professional when you set that up. And you want to have policies and procedures in place for your remote workforce that's going to direct them on what they need to do, what they're required to do, that type of thing, so that you're implementing a standard across the board. And that's really what it's really about. It's protecting your own company, but it's also protecting your clients. And you're showing a good faith effort to your clients. If anything were to ever happen, you can go back to those policies and procedures that you've implemented and say, this is what we agreed to do, this is what we've done, and that's how you're making a good faith effort. So legally, that puts you in a more defensible position.
Perfect, thank you. Next question is regarding film production. And when restrictions ease to allow productions to film again, will obtaining insurance for location filming be affected?
So what's happening now is I think all the entertainment insurance carriers are sizing up what they've got. I know that we've got a couple of carriers that are re-underwriting risks that they've been on for years. A lot of film production, in fact, all of it that I know of is pretty much stalled. And depending upon which part of the production you're in is when you're going to come back. But if you're saying it would be just easy to get insurance, I mean, there is certain insurance that is provided by, for locations. We have clients that do locations. That's their business, and we have them insured. So I think if you're asking that if it's not going to be available, I don't know that that's the case. If you're going to ask me what the premium is, that's the question mark.
Gotcha, thank you. In regards to commercial workers, how will compensation policy address employees being injured while working at home?
At this point, we're telling the clients if they've got an employee that said that they got hurt at home, or whether we don't know if it's true or not, but we're telling them to turn it in. But you do have an exposure there when you send an employee home. Now that's their work area, and that's in their course of business. And when and that's workers' comp. Workers' comp is when you have an employee-employer relationship, and if the employee's working at home, they're covered during those work hours at home. Yeah, I know it gets a little iffy because did it happen at night or did it happen in the morning? So you do have that, but we're turning those into the insurance carriers. Yes.
Okay. How is workers' comp coverage applied if worker contracts COVID-19 infection at work, and how is that verified at work versus at home or other sources?
Yeah, that's kind of a segue from what we just said. Who's to say if you got it at night or on the weekend, and then you worked during the week, and exactly when, where, who gave it to you? That is a big question mark. Nobody has come out and clearly defined it. like I said, we're turning all the claims in, and the work comp carriers are investigating and processing those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. And then do you think it'd be possible that insurance will cover the loss of income due to the coronavirus pandemic?
Do I think it will be possible?
Yeah.
Well, like I went over, at this point, it's not covered according to all the policies. But with that said, some of the policies are not worded the same exact way that I showed you in the presentation, so there may be room there, don't know. There are a few policies out there, I don't know if anybody's on the line, that may have gotten a sublimit. There may be a sublimit on some of our event people for coverage for communicable disease, and those are being turned in. I don't know if those have been paid yet, but those are possibly being considered to be paid. So at the end of the day, I don't know, unless somebody judicially overturns what the insurance policies say, or the federal government steps in and makes an allowance for it. I'm not sure that we're actually going to see anything. I think we're going to have a lot of noise and a lot of court cases.
Gotcha.
I would add that I think this issue is playing out in the courts, and we're not sure how maybe the government may step in to provide financial support for the insurance industry to pay these claims. And so I think, as Mitzi mentioned, the way we're approaching it with our clients is, go ahead and turn in the claim, and let's let, the insurance carriers adjust that claim and let it play out, because everyone's policy is different. So I don't know that there's a final definitive no on this. As we're looking at the policy wording, we're starting to get some responses, and we're seeing these requirements for physical damage due to a covered cause of loss. But I think this issue is far from over.
Thank you both. Is there going to be safety practices in place when we get back to work, similar to a safety plan? And how does this involve OSHA?
Yeah, we're working on that now. Chris Shiragi in our office, a lot of you know him. He's our loss control claim specialist, and he is paying attention to what OSHA is putting out in the way of safety as it pertains to the COVID-19. And so there may be more to discuss there when we get to open up here. That might be something else that we can go through and depart some information to everybody. But yeah, they're coming up with certain safety practices, and that's, OSHA, that's OSHA's job. That's what they do. It's all about safety at the workplace. So, yep.
Okay. I know we got time I got a couple more for you guys. As a way to avoid cyber conflict, is there a place where we can get training mods for at-home employees to practice?
Yeah, there's a number of resources. The carriers themselves, if you have a cyber liability policy, have like Know Before, or they have online portals where they can offer video type training for companies. So a low-cost option might be working with your cyber insurance carrier and taking advantage of those resources. There's also other companies, and we even have IT providers that have partnered with other third parties that provide training for awareness and avoiding social engineering and those type of issues. You can email myself or Mitzi. We could direct you to a couple resources. If you're a client, you have a policy with us, we could be an intermediary with the carrier and connect you with something they may have.
Perfect. Last question is, when companies reopen, what liability does the company have regarding, the health of employees? And if someone gets sick, can they sue?
Yeah, there's all kinds of guidelines now being put out. And of course, a lot of the labor attorneys, I think, are starting to address it, because as we reopen, this is going to become the important topic of the day, is how to keep the employees safe when we get back to work. And there's going to be a lot of regulations, or at least that's what it looks like, that's being put out by the governors in various different states. So dependent upon which business you are, will definitely have a lot to do with what you're supposed to do or not do with your employees. And then, of course, we still have the exposure, whether we do it right or not. You could still be liable from a third party, and you still could have a situation where you have an employee injury or something that occurs as an employee injury. So yeah, we still have the exposure. We still have to see what we can do about training for it.
Perfect. With that, Mitzi, I'll turn it over to you and or Howard if you want to do like a quick closure, and then I can take it from there.
Oh, I wasn't prepared to say anything else. We really enjoyed being on with the Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation. We care about everybody in this community. We care about all our clients, and we want everybody to stay safe.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Oh, no, thanks a lot. And I think that this is a brand new environment, and LBW is committed to working with our clients to navigate and protect them financially and help them manage the risk as this evolves.
So perfect. I'd like to thank Mitzi Like and Howard Miller and the full LBW team once again for this information. And thanks to everyone who's able to join us. If we didn't get to your question, please feel free to email hello@scvchamber.com and we'll try to get you the necessary information. For additional business resources, please visit our website, scvchamber.com, and we have the COVID-19 tab with more details. Thanks again for joining us. Please be safe, be healthy, and don't hesitate to reach out and let us know how the Chamber can help you. So thank you all again.